Hi, I'm Dave Rosenstrath, Director and Founder of Wharton Wealth Planning. Thanks for zooming in this evening. Let's just wait a minute for people that are still logging in to get themselves situated. I promise this presentation will be 30 minutes, so the first 20 minutes will be an overview of important topics, and the last 10 minutes will be a question and answer session. If you have questions during the presentation, please put those into the chat, or if you prefer, you can email me at david@whartonwealthplanning.com, and I'll respond at the end of the presentation. Wharton Wealth Planning was founded to follow the strategies and principles that firms providing financial advice should follow, but often might not be able to follow because they could employ policies that pose conflicts of interest. At Wharton Wealth Planning, we don't accept investment commissions, and we don't restrict ourselves to working with any specific proprietary products. We could choose from any product that's available based on what's in the best interest of the client. In this presentation, I'll outline steps you can start taking today that will have an immediate impact, and steps that will be important for the longer-term success of your future, your retirement, your businesses, and even your heirs. Freedom, safety, and security are all concepts I think about every day as a certified financial planner, so these things don't have to be stressful later on in life. Some quick background on myself. Prior to founding Wharton Wealth Planning, I was the Director of Investments and Research at Sage Capital Management, a registered investment advisor. Previously, I worked with several regional broker-dealers, focusing on the fixed income and equity markets for institutional investors. I started my career as an analyst at Goldman Sachs. I have an MBA from the Wharton School of Business and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Cornell University. I earned my Certified Financial Planner certification, and I'm also licensed to sell life insurance. I live in New York with my wife and my very active children. And so now let's get to the presentation. Over my career, I've collectively analyzed, traded, and managed billions of dollars in asset categories, including stocks, bonds, and other investments. Lots more background information, including media articles, can be found on our website. Now let's get to the presentation. Today, we'll discuss investment planning and strategies, asset protection strategies, estate planning, and other risk management steps you could take to safeguard the future of your practice and your family. I'll also talk briefly about the impact that some of the new retirement legislation recently passed will have on your investment and retirement planning strategies. These topics are particularly relevant as because of all the increased challenges that have been caused from COVID, this has been a very stressful period to be a physician. I know of a doctor who retired early because of his frustration with managed care. He had planned to work for another 10 years into his late 70s, but after having to spend an hour on the phone with a clerk at an insurance company to justify a 25-minute visit with a patient, he decided to retire. Now let's talk about how to safeguard your financial future. When you end the workday with your patients and walk out the door, you might not have a lot left to give to other aspects of your life. Focusing on personal finance issues and topics likely might not be a priority when you're in that moment. I realize physicians spend so much of their time helping others, but it's important to take care of yourself first so that then you can take care of others. Surveys and focus groups conducted have uncovered challenges many medical professionals face when it comes to planning for retirement. For example, 61% of those surveyed say they do not have time to focus on securing their own retirement because of other time-consuming problems. Just 6% have indicated they feel knowledgeable about investing. The Federal Reserve recently hiked the benchmark Fed funds rate to the 4.75%, 5% range, which is the highest level since 2008, and inflation's been running at a 40-year high. The stock market has reacted accordingly and has had some fairly large declines. In 2022, the classic 60-40 portfolio, which is a 60% stock and 40% fixed income portfolio, had its worst performance in the last 100 years. Valuations fell last year below their 25-year average, but this has also created some opportunities because in general, as stocks and bonds fall in price, their future expected returns increase. Now let's talk about putting a plan in writing. One of the best ways to avoid mistakes is to put a plan in writing with the correct updated assumptions. It's important to test your plan using a wide range of assumptions and customize it to your unique circumstances and factors. In the words of the great philosopher, financial advisor, and former Yankees catcher, you've got to be very careful if you don't know where you're going, because you might not get there, according to Yogi Berra. The first step in creating a personal financial plan is to evaluate your financial situation. Next, the discovery and information gathering process allows for the development of recommendations and alternatives. And finally, we work with clients to implement those recommendations and, very importantly, monitor them on a continuous basis. Making a plan allows a decision-making process for investment strategy, taxes, estate planning, and retirement age selection. A formal financial plan could bring to light flaws in a retirement plan while there's still time to take action. The other day, for example, I took my kids out for ice cream, and by the time they self-served, added themselves extra portions of ice cream and added their toppings, the bill came to over $20. So prices aren't always what we might have expected them to be or what we remember them as. And so it's really important to just understand where the flaws might be in your plan and what you might want to do to correct them. A plan can also provide for peace of mind and prevent market fluctuations from causing panic. In 2022, the average market prediction from analysts had a 30% deviation from what actually occurred that year. So plans are all meant to address these sorts of things. According to Amelia Earhart, preparation is rightly 2/3 of any venture. So you want to prioritize your goals and then customize a plan which will maximize your potential to achieve those goals. And that's a very important process in terms of customizing a plan to your unique circumstances and factors. So these are all some of the tax-related strategies I'm going to go through briefly in the next few minutes. They can all be used as we're beginning the new year. Regularly contributing to retirement accounts is an important component of investment planning. Whether you're self-employed or work for an organization, there are different types of retirement plans you can start taking advantage of to prepare for your post-career life. If possible, you should maximize contributions to retirement accounts, and there's many different types of retirement accounts to choose from. A good general rule of thumb is to contribute 10 to 15% of your income, and this includes any employer matching contribution. Retirement accounts are important because they combine the power of compounding with the benefit of tax-deferred and, in some cases, tax-free growth. For example, if your marginal federal tax bracket is 35% and your state is 5%, after taxes, saving $1 costs you only 60 cents. So compounding isn't a concept that you want to miss out on. Depending on employment status, there's multiple ways to save for retirement. If your income is earned from an employer, 401k or 403b plans are some of the options. And if you own your own practice, a solo 401k or a traditional IRA, a SEP IRA, or several other types of plans might be good for you. If your employer's plan allows for after-tax contributions, you can save up to a total of $66,000 in 2023. And this includes all contributions, including your employer's. So in simple terms, compounding means that the interest and investment returns you receive over time is reinvested. So that will allow you to earn interest on interest and profit on profits. This multiplies your money at an accelerated rate. And this compounding illustration is meant to demonstrate this. So in this example, it assumes you're earning $500, you're contributing $500 per month each month until you hit age 65 and earning a 7% rate of return. And you can see here the differential between starting early at age 25 versus age 45, just as examples, ends up being a very wide difference at the end, close to $1 million in terms of the amount that's at age 65. So that's a very important concept. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is equally as important to contributing to retirement accounts is the order or the sequence in which you invest in these accounts. The sequence you use to invest money may have implications as to whether or not you're able to take advantage of tax deductions in a particular year. and also could enable you to pay less in the future when you make withdrawals. So you want to be maxing out your 401k or 403b plan or SEP IRA, and then after that, your backdoor Roth IRA, and then after that, your taxable investment accounts. And this diagram is meant to depict the sequence. So the Secure 2.0 Act was recently signed into law by President Biden on December 29th, 2002. And it contains many provisions that will have an impact on everyone listening to this calls. Here's a quick summary, but not all of the points regarding the Secure Act. So the age at which you can start taking required minimum distributions will increase to age 73 in 2023 and 75 in 2033. There's also larger catch-up contribution options for those nearing retirement and feel that they haven't saved enough. Require minimum distributions on Roth 401ks will be removed in 2024. So that creates an opportunity in financial planning. And also penalty rollovers will now be able to occur from 529 plans to Roth IRAs. And there are some restrictions to that. I'm going to talk a little bit further about that. And there'll also be improved access to emergency savings from retirement plans as well. So a solo 401k plan is a traditional 401k plan, and it covers a business owner with no employees or that person and his or her spouse only. Anyone who generates net profits from a sole proprietorship, LLC, or other business organization can open a solo 401k as long as they have no employees aside from their spouse. The solo 401k offers a really good high savings limit and some tax advantages versus other plans. Solo 401ks allow you to contribute to the plan as both the employer and the employee, and this allows you to maximize your personal retirement contributions. There's definitely some detailed requirements that govern this plan, so you want to understand what those are prior to making any final decisions and opening one. SEP IRA is another plan for self-employed and small businesses. In 2023, you can contribute up to 25% of your compensation, or $66,000, whichever is greater. You can still make contributions for last year, 2022, up until tax day in April. A Roth IRA is another retirement account that offers tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals in retirement. So it doesn't matter if you're covered by an employer's retirement plan, such as a 401k or 403b. As long as you don't exceed the IRS's income limits, you can still contribute the maximum annual amount to a Roth IRA. These aren't offered through employers, but they're fairly easy to set up on your own. High-income medical professionals don't qualify to make Roth contributions. Backdoor Roth IRAs allow you to make non-deductible traditional IRA contributions and then convert them to a Roth IRA. So if you have an existing IRA, it might not be prudent to complete backdoor Roth IRAs each year. Technically you can, but it becomes logistically complex based on the tax code. So if there's any questions about that, feel free to reach out. It'll all depend on specific circumstances, but I did want to point that out. Spousal IRAs are another type of account everyone can consider. The spousal IRA permits a spouse who doesn't work or earn income to fund an individual retirement account. And it's important to understand the rules and how income thresholds will affect tax deductions. The rules are definitely complex, and what you do depends on a variety of factors that I could brief you on if interested. Since everyone attending today has a different situation, I won't get further into the weeds on that. For your children's education, to increase your tax efficiency and save at tax time, you can use dependent care accounts and establish a 529 education savings account. You can use a 529 plan to pay for college, kindergarten through 12th grade tuition, and student loan repayments. My wife and I funded these for our children, and it's worked out very nicely. As you can see here, the kids are very happy. I'm also pretty happy because the new retirement legislation that I was just talking about, Secure Act 2.0, has an impact on these 529 plans. Now you can now make a $35,000 transfer from a 529 plan to a Roth IRA. There are some restrictions. It has to occur after 15 years. The rollover could be made only to the beneficiary's Roth IRA, not the account owners. And rollovers are still subject to the annual Roth IRA contribution limit. But this does create an opportunity to avoid penalties on education plans which you didn't use in full. And I think it's really a good aspect of the new retirement legislation. For UT, another type of account to consider is a custodial account. These accounts can allow parents or grandparents to start investing for a child today. You should also always contribute to accounts to manage medical expenses, such as HSAs or health savings accounts, and FSAs or flex spending accounts. Based on your areas of expertise, you're all likely very familiar with these types of accounts. Health savings accounts offer a triple tax benefit, making them one of the tax code most favored savings vehicles. One important point to emphasize is to get the optimal benefit from an HSA, you should invest the money and avoid withdrawing the funds shortly after you contribute to the account. So you want to leave your HSA contributions in your HSA account and use funds from your bank account, for example, to pay out-of-pocket medical expenses each year. You also want to focus on taxable brokerage accounts. Because your risk of job loss is often lower than that of many other professionals, you can take more investment risk, but it should also be smart and calculated risk. And that will often mean being properly diversified. Based on your relative high tax brackets, investments need to be tax sensitive. You want to keep turnover low and keep tax inefficient investments in retirement accounts and not in taxable accounts. You also want to avoid holding on to underperforming investments because you might have had them a long time and become emotionally attached. And you can use tax loss harvesting in these instances if necessary. Also, you should always try to maximize charitable contribution deductions. And one way to do this is by selecting highly appreciated assets when you're contributing to charitable causes. This can reduce your tax bill and increase your deduction. There's plenty of other strategies to discuss here as well. You also want to avoid taking short-term reactions to market movements. Studies have shown the short-term reactions to market news could cost investors 30 to 40% of expected returns. And when you're done with a long, stressful day and maybe some challenging cases and patients, the last thing you want to do is have something else to think about that's stressful, like the economy, the stock market, or your personal finances. So one of the reasons to do a financial plan is to make sure your investments and the current course that you're on is correct for your personal circumstances and needs. Financial surveys have shown that medical professionals tend to be risk averse. However, if you have a long-term time horizon until retirement, you're in a good position to take on calculated investment risk. And the good news is that you can manage investment risk based on how and where you invest your money. There's many strategies available from aggressive to conservative, and the right selection should be customized and depends on the individual's personal circumstances. It's important to find the right balance between safety and growth. Safety often comes at the price of reduced return potential and erosion of value due to inflation. And then on the other hand, if you invest too heavily in growth investments, your risk is definitely going to be heightened. When assessing investments in portfolios, there's a few things you want to focus on. These include asset allocation and diversification, tax efficiency, or making sure your after-tax returns are attractive. It's not only about looking at your before-tax returns. I think a lot of people might overlook that point. You want to look at the risk-reward profile of investments and also the cost effectiveness and of specific investments. So a financial plan is meant to help you uncover areas of risk and opportunity. Here's a couple of quick common investment portfolio problems and solutions. If your portfolio is overly concentrated in growth stocks, changing the asset allocation and adding value stocks could really benefit you by improving diversification and your risk-reward profile. If you're experiencing large capital gains taxes from investment turnover, you want to use tax-efficient vehicles to reduce your taxes, such as ETFs. And this can allow you to maintain market exposure while reducing taxes. I'm reminded of a client that I have, who was experiencing very large taxable consequences from an actively managed strategy that was in their taxable account. And I was able to reduce their taxes by almost, their annual taxes by almost 50%. So they were very happy with that. So this isn't something that should be overlooked. Now let's talk about asset protection and some good practices. Protecting your business and financial and personal assets is also an important part of any healthcare strategy. Malpractice insurance is always important. Malpractice insurance serves as a safeguard for the future. If you change jobs or your circumstances change, you definitely want to make sure you review and update your malpractice insurance. Another area to talk about is disability insurance. Disability insurance is key for physicians and medical professionals. Earnings are the biggest asset depending on the stage of career. And disability insurance replaces part of your income, usually around 60% up to a specified amount, when an illness or injury is ongoing or permanent. You want to update your disability insurance to incorporate and protect your current salary if your salary increases. And it's important to recognize that not all disability is created equally. And so now's a good time to check your disability definition. Some policies may pay benefits only if you can't perform any work at all, rather than being unable to do the specific type of work you currently do. So that's really important. Now let's talk about umbrella insurance. If you're a physician who has a notable amount of assets accumulated, an umbrella policy is in your best interest. This policy is separate from your professional liability coverage. Your policy will protect you if you're sued or if you cause someone injury. This policy should be viewed as a secondary policy or a backup to your traditional homeowners, auto, and/or renter's insurance. Your policy should cover legal fees, your future salary if you owe future earnings to a plaintiff in a case against you, and your current assets. Each state has its own exclusive rules, and those should dictate your asset protection plan. So umbrella insurance is the easiest way to add liability coverage for you personally and at a very low cost, often just around $300 per $1 million of coverage. So it's a pretty good deal from that perspective. If you're self-employed, the legal formation you use to set up your business will be very important as to how you are able to protect your business and personal assets. Also, if you're concerned about protecting your wealth, one thing you can also do is use a limited liability company or LLC for risky assets. And one of the most common ones we come across is rental properties. Another topic to talk about with respect to asset protection is joint protection insurance. By adding a joint owner to your home deed, your bank accounts, and your investment accounts, you're adding an extra layer of protection. We're now going to go over some estate planning tactics, which will be the last section before we go into Q&A. A very quick story to start this section. When James Gandolfini died suddenly of a heart attack in 2013, it left his family, friends, and fans stunned and saddened with his sudden passing. As many remember, it came on by surprise. Nobody was expecting it. It was a sudden heart attack. James Gandolfini left his heirs an estimated $70 million. However, because of poor estate planning, his heirs may have potentially owed over $30 million in taxes. Gandolfini didn't take proper steps to ensure that the IRS would not be one of the main beneficiaries to his assets. One of the primary goals of estate planning, in addition to minimizing estate taxes, is to give surviving family members and beneficiaries less stress and some privacy. Estate planning will ensure that your physical assets, investments, cash are transferred to your beneficiaries with minimal legal and tax complications. To ensure that your estate does not go through probate, you want to have a will and consider the option of using a trust as well. With a revocable living trust, you can distribute your property the way you see fit, maintain flexibility and control over your property during your lifetime, and keep your estate plan out of the public spotlight for everyone to access. Also, remember to list and, if needed, update your beneficiaries and your contingent beneficiaries, as your will not govern these assets, and that could cause your heirs a lot of problems. I think a lot of people tend to forget that point. Life and disability insurance can be critical, since on average you start your career with loans and earn annual income. Your first life insurance policy should likely not be a permanent insurance product. With financial success over time, you might be able to eliminate some of your life and disability coverage, saving significant annual premiums. Term insurance could be used to help meet temporary needs, such as covering children's education or mortgage payments, whereas permanent life insurance can help meet legacy and estate planning needs. Before we close, I'll mention a brief cautionary tale that could save you and your heirs a lot of heartache and money. Like James Gandolfini, Aretha Franklin, Prince, Sonny Bono, and Michael Jackson all failed to do proper estate planning, costing their estates and heirs significant tax bills, and their loved ones likely a lot of unnecessary stress. Estate planning allows you to make decisions that your loved ones can carry out while following your legal directions. Everyone should have an advanced healthcare directive and a power of attorney form. These are key legal documents that help resolve what should happen in the event you're very ill or becoming incapacitated. The first involves medical decisions, and the second involves financial decisions. So leaving assets outright to adult children is also a part of financial planning that needs to be thought out and managed. People understand why minor children and young adults shouldn't inherit property outright. Someone with more maturity and experience needs to manage the assets and make the spending decisions. That's why for minors and young adults, inheritance is routinely left in trusts, at least until the minors are older. Too often, however, people overlook the benefits of leaving assets in trust for adult children instead of having them inherit the property outright. There's a high percentage of young people who fire their late parents' advisors immediately, and this might not be in their best interest. There are risks to leaving wealth outright, even to grown children, and benefits of using inheritance trusts to hold bequests for them. Reaching a particular age doesn't mean someone is financially sophisticated. The adult child could hire a money manager or financial advisor to manage the wealth inherited outright, but someone who isn't sophisticated enough to manage the money might not make a good choice of a financial advisor. If applicable, it's important to make an assessment of the ability of each of your children to manage the property and then decide whether to leave the bequest outright or in a trust. You can also set rules for distributions from the trust, and the trust also protects your wealth from the creditors of the children. If asset and creditor protection is a goal, you might also want the trust to be located in a state that has stronger protection. Also, when you leave an inheritance outright to an adult child, the spouse of your offspring can claim a share of the assets in a divorce or separation. But when you leave the bequest in a trust, this issue might be resolved. Children's inheritances don't have to be turned over to them when they reach 18 or 20 or 21. You can design a trust that provides for the funds to be released incrementally as the child progresses into adulthood. With respect to estate liquidity, you can use insurance as a way to create liquidity, but you should remove life insurance from your estate because that will decrease the size of your estate and potential taxation. And guardianship for minors is a really important topic as well, as planning for the care of children in the case of unfortunate circumstances is one of the most important things parents can do. The sooner a permanent or temporary guardian is appointed in the event of an unfortunate situation, the more quickly a child can adjust. And if you don't appoint a guardian, the court will end up appointing one for you, who may or may not be to your liking. Last slide, remember to review your estate plan when changes occur. And this can include marriage or divorce, birth or adoption, death of a spouse, inheritance of assets, changes in beneficiaries, and many other changes as well. I hope you found this webinar helpful. We're always willing to work virtually to save you time. Now I'll respond to some questions. Okay, so the first question I'll take is, we're planning for retirement and about 6 years away from it. I wanted to get your view on what target date funds are and if they're good to use. Okay, so a target date fund is a class of mutual funds or ETFs that periodically rebalances itself based on a specific target or predetermined time frame. I think with respect to target date funds, it's really important to understand what the investments are within the target date funds. And it's also important to think about whether your target is to a specific date or through a specific date. So for example, just because you're retiring, you might not want your risk or changes in your portfolio to be reduced to a certain level, because you are still going to have several decades of potential expenses. And so I think it's really important to recognize that your target date could change over time. And also sometimes based on your situation, it might be a little bit more complicated to determine than just using specifically a retirement date per se. All right, the next question I'll take is, do you think Silicon Valley Bank and some of the situations with other banks recently will be very bad for the economy and the markets in the near term? So I think in many respects, what's happened with Silicon Valley Bank could actually be good overall for the market, because inflation's been running at a 40-year high. And I think situations like this tend to really cool spending and cool hotter inflationary environments, and sort of serve as a weight to growth, which is one of the things that the Federal Reserve has been trying to do with interest rate raises. So in many respects, many believe that the Federal Reserve might not have to raise interest rates as much now. And so that's a really good thing overall for asset valuations and prices, because interest rate rises tend to really have a pretty large impact. But equally as important, I would point out that the situation with Silicon Valley Bank is a little bit, it's worth noting that it's very different than what happened with Bear Stearns, for example, or Lehman Brothers. Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers were instances where significant leverage and derivatives were used. Silicon Valley Bank was really not that sort of situation. Assets and liabilities were mismatched. Basically, Silicon Valley Bank invested in some longer dated bonds, and those were not a good match with some of the shorter term deposits that they had as assets, which could be withdrawn, and that created sort of a liquidity problem. But I think it's very different from leverage, and so I don't think it's going to be the contagion that we saw back with Lehman Brothers. And so I wouldn't be as concerned, but it's certainly something to monitor. And this is actually one of the reasons also why it's important to have a financial plan and make sure your asset allocation is and diversification strategies are right. So when situations like this happen, they don't have as large an impact on your portfolio as if you were concentrated, for example. So let me take another question here. My wife and I are 54 years old, and we each work full time. We haven't had as much success as we would have hoped for with our investments. Would you recommend stocks or bonds more currently in today's environment? Okay, so generally there's no one size fits all with respect to investments. The specifics will really depend on your circumstances, your profile, how far you are from retirement, what your family needs are, and a range of other business needs are, what a range of other circumstances as well might dictate. So I think in general, stocks and bonds should have play a role in everyone's portfolio. The exact allocations is what's going to vary. It's important to note that there's different types of bonds as well. Some bonds do better as interest rates rise, others do better as interest rates fall. And so it's really important to sort of understand the specifics of the person's goals. One of the things I try to do as a certified financial planner is really try to understand my clients' needs and their circumstances, and then customize a portfolio to help them maximize their ability to achieve their goals. So let me take another question here. What types of investments do you recommend for 529 education plans? So I think one of the things that's really important is, I think Stocks and bonds, similar to like what I was just saying for the last question, should play a role in 529 education plans, but a lot is going to depend on the timing of when you're going to need the investments for the education, for the purpose of education. If you're closer to needing the funds, I recommend a much more conservative approach because you don't want market swings to impact you in the short term. But if you have a longer term time horizon, I really recommend making sure you take advantage of the tax, some of the tax advantage growth that you get from a 529 plan, and really making sure you focus on equities and the right types of strategies there, as that's going to enable your money to compound the most and will enable you to have the most money for your education needs when you get to that point. I'll take one last question here. Do you think cryptocurrencies or gold should play a role in an investment portfolio today? So cryptocurrencies are not investments that I've ever recommended for client accounts, because they just haven't met the risk parameters and the ability to achieve clients' goals in other investments relative to other investments versus traditional stocks and bonds. I think I also view gold similarly in this fashion, in that I think gold is a really good store of value. I don't think cryptocurrencies have proven to be a good store of value. But even though gold is a good store of value, I think it only outperforms over very short periods of time. And so for that reason, if I was really looking for a store of value or a safe haven, I would really focus more on cash or certain fixed income investments. I think over the long term, gold underperforms significantly based on all the research and empirical studies. And so for that reason, I'd rather just not be in gold and really try to maximize my clients' dollars longer term, which is the viewpoint that I like to take when I'm investing for clients. Let me just see, was there any other parts of this question that I'm missing? Yeah, so I think in general, cryptocurrencies and gold are not really investment recommendations that I choose for clients' portfolios. So thank you everyone for the great questions tonight and for attending this webinar. I hope you found the question and answer session helpful. If you have any additional questions, you can contact me through email or phone, whatever's easier. Have a great rest of the night. Thank you.